This is the full Howard Melton presentation at Kettle Moraine High School. It's about an hour and 10 minutes long. There are some parts where the video cuts around. That's because the camera can only record so much at a time. So I tried to piece it together where you can still get as much information as possible.
That I can have you read out of the book.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? On June 22nd, 1941, I was in a summer camp, and they woke us up about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. They told us that Germany had launched Operation Barbarossa, the attack on the Soviet Union. At that time, we were occupied by the Russians. They took us back to our hometown right away, which was the capital of Lithuania. There lived about 160,000 people, and about 25,000 were Jews. The Jewish population was about 25%. German planes came over, started strafing us, and bombing us. Most Jewish people started running away on Sunday when we were attacked. But my family, we started running away on Monday, which was already too late, because the German troops were advancing very fast, because the Russians did not have any good troops in Lithuania. They only had the recruits there stationed. So the German troops were advancing very fast. There weren't many main roadways out of town. So the main waters were crowded with refugees, Jews, Lithuanians, Russian soldiers. German planes came over, started strafing us and bombing us. You had to dive into the ditches. A lot of people got killed. We got about maybe 35 kilometers from our hometown to a little town called Yanova. We stopped for the night. Most of those houses were abandoned, empty. We stayed in a house close to the highway. And my mother opened up the curtains in the morning, and she saw German soldiers, and she started crying. I didn't know why she was crying. Evidently, she must have had a premonition. So we went back to our hometown. Right away, the Germans passed anti-Jewish laws. The Lithuanians were very anti-Semitic. They still are. Killed between, some people say 1,000 to 2,000 Jews. One day they were your neighbor. The next day they came in, robbed you, raped you, and killed you, just because you were a Jew. Right away, when the Germans came in, they passed anti-Jewish laws right away. The Jews had to wear the yellow Star of David front and back. Jews could not walk on the sidewalk. They could not use public transportation. They could not go to cinema. They could not go to a park. In other words, what they try to do is dehumanize you. And if you're not a human being, the Germans can do with you what they want. Finally, they decided to put all the Jews in the ghetto. If you wanted to have control over the people, you had to concentrate them. So they made the Jews build this ghetto. And when we were lucky, we lived in a big town. And there were 40,000 Jews. Because in 1940, Hitler formed Einsatzgruppen, special squads. He collected them from the police departments from all over Germany. Their job was to follow the German army, not to fight the Russians, but to kill Jews and political instructors of the Russian army. So if the German army came in a small town and there lived maybe 100 Jews, maybe 200 Jews, the Lithuanians would point them out to the Germans, and the Germans would shoot them. And sometimes the Lithuanians didn't have to point them out to the Germans. The Lithuanians themselves would shoot them. Finally, they decided to put all the Jews in a ghetto. They made the Jews build a ghetto in the poorest little suburb of the city called William Paul Lithuanian Slobodkin Jews. There lived about 10,000 people. And the Lithuanians had to move out, and the Jews had to move in. If you were lucky enough, you exchanged living quarters with the Lithuanian. If you weren't lucky enough, you had no place to live. You lived on the street, you lived in public buildings. But they had a problem. They had a main roadway running by this little village, and we didn't have many main roadways to begin with, so they couldn't shut it down. So they built a wooden trestle over the main roadway, connecting these two ghettos. They told the Jews, when they closed the ghetto up, to form a Jewish committee to elect an Oberjude, a head Jew, and the head Jew should collect the committee and collect the police department, a Jewish police department, because they were going to require 8,000 to 10,000 people to come to work. Come to work at the airport, to build up the airport, or to go to work the factories. And it was the Jewish police department, was the job, to make sure that they had so many people ready by the main gate. When they closed the ghetto, they had a first action. They were called actions. You had to turn in anything of value: gold, silver, money, bicycles, electrical appliances, anything of value you had to turn in. And they went from house to house and started searching them. Not only did they collect the parts that you were supposed to turn in, if they found it, they would take the family out and shoot them right in front of the house as a deterrent against the rest of the people. But if they found nice furniture or nice clothing or nice appliances, they would confiscate it. And they had the railroad cars standing by, and they shipped them all back to Germany. Finally, on October 7th, I think, the Germans decided there were too many unproductive people in the ghetto. The orphanage, the hospital, the old age home were all in a small ghetto. They boarded up the hospital with the doctors, nurses, patients, visitors, whoever was in there, set it on fire. The hospital burned for 2 days. They took about 6,000 people that were in a small ghetto, took them up to the 7th fort. Now, Connors had the 10 forts built around the city in the First World War. What they were used in normal times is to house prisoners. So they took the people up there, men, women, and children, and shot them. On October 28, 1941, the Germans decided there were still too many unproductive people in the ghetto. Unless you worked for them, they didn't even want to give you 800 calories a day food to sustain you. So nobody went to work. You had to leave your doors open, your windows open, your cupboards open. You had to assemble in an open place called the Maquato place. You had to be there 6 o'clock in the morning. And if they caught you at their home after 6 o'clock in the morning, they would shoot you. And they did it too. They didn't care if you were crippled, sick, or whatever. You had to be there. There were 2 men, one SS man named Walker, and one SA man named Jordan. And you came before them, individually as a family, and they looked you over. If you were young, healthy, could get some work out of you, they sent you to the right. If you're old, crippled, sick, they sent you to the left. They put 10,000 people in a small ghetto overnight. The next day, they took them up to the 7th fort and shot them. Men, women, and children. That's when I lost most of my family. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. After that, there was lots of room in the ghetto. In February 1942, the Germans took 500 men when they were coming home from work and shipped them up to Riga, Latvia, which is the next country above Lithuania. And the reason they shipped them up there is because the Latvians, who are also very anti-Semitic, maybe more so than the Lithuanians, killed most of the Jews up there. And they needed some slave laborers to expand the airport up there. It so happened that they took my father up there. In October 42, they came around and they asked for volunteers to be shipped up to Riga. Usually you don't volunteer for anything. But my mother knew that my father was shipped up there. So she volunteered. So my mother, older sister and I, the younger sister and I, and with 500 other people were shipped up to Riga, Latvia. And that action that my mother took probably saved my life. Didn't save my mother's life or my sister's lives, because that ghetto in Lithuanian Kaunas was turned into a concentration camp. And it took all the children that were not at work and shipped them to Auschwitz. Had I stayed there, I would have been shipped to Auschwitz too. But a camp up in Riga was not as bad a camp, because that camp was run by the Luftwaffe, by the German Air Force. And they had a farm up there, and they asked for volunteers to work on a farm, so I volunteered to work on a farm. You can always get the extra carrot, extra potato, extra slice of bread, so it wasn't too bad. In summer of 1943, the SS took over a camp, and it took everybody that were not at work and shipped them to Auschwitz. That's when I lost my younger sister. Had I not been working, I would have been shipped there too. Finally, in the spring of 1944, the Russian front got pretty close to us, so they shipped us back to Lithuania, to a work camp in Lithuania. Then they shipped us to a concentration camp on the Baltic Sea in Poland, called Stutov. And when we got to Stutov, they took everything away from us, gave us a shower. We were happy that water came out instead of gas. Cut our hair, made us spread eagle, made sure we didn't hide anything. Gave us a striped pair of pants, striped coat, a pair of wooden shoes, and put us in some barracks. The next day, they shipped out the work transport, the concentration camp Dachau. I wanted to go with my father, but evidently I was too short. They wouldn't let me. So I stayed in Stutov. I stayed there for 6 weeks. And those were the most horrible weeks I spent in any camp, because we didn't do anything. We were guarded by 2 couples. Every barracks had overseers that were called kapos. And we had numbers on our uniforms and colored triangles. Jews had yellow triangles. Political prisoners had red triangles. Homosexuals had pink triangles. Criminals had green triangles. And the reason for the triangles is that when they looked at you, they knew why you were there for. We were guarded by 2 couples with green triangles, so we knew they were political, not political, they were criminal prisoners. They stood on either side of the door in the morning with sticks and clobbered you. And if you happened to sneak by, they called you back and gave you twice as much. Now, they took everything away from us. They gave us a piece of wire or a piece of string to hold up our pens, and a metal cup or metal bowl. If you didn't have the metal cup or the metal bowl, you just didn't eat. They gave us some coffee called a Satzkaffee, substitute coffee, made out of burnt straw, slice of bread, piece of margarine, and we sat in the sand, doing nothing. Till about 11:30, 12 o'clock, they gave us some soup made out of weeds and a few floating potatoes in it, and a slice of bread. We sat in the sand again. Till about 4:30, 5 o'clock, they repeated the process, chased us back in the barracks. We were about maybe 200, 220 boys between the ages of 12 to 16. We slept in 3-tiered wooden bunks. If you didn't find one woman a bunk, you slept on the floor. I have a friend here. We're from the same hometown. He's 3 years older than I am. Actually, he went to school with my older sister. We went through all the camps together. We were liberated together. And because of him, I came to the United States. We wanted to get out of there in the worst way, because we knew that one of these days they're going to come for us and take us to the gas chamber, because we didn't do anything. We didn't work. Finally, they were short on the work transport to concentration camp Dachau. They were short for 550 people. And they said anybody who's 15 years old or older should come forward. I was only 13, my friend was 15. But I told him I was 15. So we were shipped to concentration camp Dachau, which is close to Munich in southern Bavaria. I found out after the war what happened to the young boys that they left there in Stutthof. They put them, before the Russians got there, they put them on a German boat and were taking them further into Germany. And that boat was torpedoed by a Russian submarine, and they all drowned. Had we stayed there, we would have been drowned there too. Dachau had 10 subcamps that were called Außenlager, and we were shipped to a brand new camp called Camp number 10. We were about 500 men. We slept in barracks. I don't know if you can call them barracks. You probably can't call them barracks, because you can imagine just roofs laying on the ground, no walls. There were ditches dug in the middle, and we slept on either side on wooden boards, straw and blankets. 25 people to a side, 50 people to a barracks. The food at the beginning was not too bad. They gave us soup twice a day and a loaf of bread divided by 3 people. But towards the end of the war, the Germans themselves were short on food. They gave us soup once a day and a loaf of bread decided by 10 people. And the person that divided that loaf of bread got the last slice. So he made sure he divided it evenly. We worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. We manufactured concrete beams, 45, 50 feet long, reinforced with steel, that the Germans were going to use to build underground airports in the Tyrolean mountains. We did not have any sanitary facilities except toilets and cold water basins. If you got sick, you couldn't work, they shipped you back to Dachau. That was the end of you. Finally, in April 1945, the American army got pretty close to us, so they marched us back to Dachau. Took us about 2 days to get there. When we got to Dachau, the situation was horrible. was for those railroad cars with dead people and laying inside and out. But evidently, we must have been the best looking specimen that came in there, because they gave us a shower and told us to report to the main gate the next morning. They gave us a small loaf of bread and a small can of meat, which we haven't seen in a couple of years, and would march us out. We were guarded with assessment with German Shepherd dogs. If you were a smart prisoner, and I think most prisoners that survived that long were pretty smart, the first thing you did, you ate it, because nobody can steal it from you. Once it's in your stomach, it's yours. First, we were marching in the daytime. Then American planes came over, started strafing us and bombing us. Then we started marching at night. No food, no water. If you lay down or you fell down, they stuck the dogs on you. The dogs started biting you. If you didn't get up, they put a bullet in your head. That was the end of you. Finally, they marched us into a little ravine, and we saw machine guns on three sides of it. And I said goodbye to my friend. We lay down, we said goodbye to each other, because the Germans had told us, 5 minutes to 12, we're going to get rid of you. We're not going to live your life. So we lay down, we expected to be shot, but we woke up the next morning. Evidently, the commander of the transport wanted to save his own skin. Didn't shoot us. Marched us out. Marched us another maybe 30 kilometers. Marched us into some woods. Stayed there for 2 days. We woke up on May 2nd, 1945. We were covered with about 2 inches of snow. And all the dogs had disappeared, and all the guards had disappeared in the night. They were all gone. 2 old German soldiers, towards the end of the war, they started drafting people in the 60s. Masters in this little village called Wachkirchen. And about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we saw some tanks coming down the road with white stars. We knew the Russians used red stars. We didn't know the Americans used white stars. But the first star that came into this little village was very dirty. But when it left, it was very clean. People were crying and kissing it. It's like getting your life back. The Americans were very good to us, maybe a little bit too good. Not having eaten for 8, 9 days, they gave us chocolates and hamburgers and sea rations. And most people overate. And a lot of people died from overeating. My friend and I were in and out of hospitals for about 2 years till we could recuperate. In December 1947, my friend decided to immigrate to the United States because he was an orphan, and President Truman had an orphan quota to come to the United States. So he immigrated to the United States. I stayed in Germany. I kept getting letters from him, how wonderful this country is, how great these people are. So I decided to come here too. I came here in August 1949. In June of 1950, the Korean War broke out. My friend got drafted into the United States Army. If you wanted to become a citizen, you had to serve. I didn't want to get drafted, so I joined the United States Air Force. I served for 4 years in the United States Air Force. I met a beautiful Jewish girl in Milwaukee in 1950. She was a senior in high school. Fell in love with her. I told her I'll write her a letter for I get stationed. And when she graduates in 1951, if she's in love with me, she should come out and we'd get married. So in June of 1951, she and her father came out to California, where I was stationed. We got married, and we'll celebrate 69 years this coming June. We have 4 children. We have 9 grandchildren. And we have 6 great-grandchildren. I'm very proud about my children. They're all college graduates. My oldest son went to UW-Madison. Then he went to University of Chicago, became an attorney. He just retired 2 years ago. He worked as an attorney in Chicago in intellectual property. And my daughter went to UW-Madison. She became an art teacher. She taught in Cedarburg. She just retired last year. And my other son went to UW, got a degree in limnology. Does anybody know what limnology is? Anybody? No. That's a degree in freshwater lakes. I asked him, where are you going to get a job, except for the federal government, for the state? Anyway, he's working for me. And my other son went to UW, got a degree in art too, and is working for me too. And I'm very proud of my grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter became an attorney. She went to UW, and then she went to University of Illinois, became an attorney, and she works for the Homeland Security. And her brother went to the CIA school, not the one you think about, Culinary Institute of America. He became a chef. Then he went back to UW and became a chemical engineer, and is working for a chocolate factory in Madison. I'm very proud of my children and of my grandchildren. And the main food in the camps was potatoes and bread. In the ghetto, they gave us some horse meat. Now, I'm sure it wasn't from young horses, it must have been from old hags, because the Germans were using horses for transportation. But if you're hungry, I mean real hungry, I don't think there's anybody in the United States that knows what hunger is. I mean real hunger. Real hunger means if you can put something in your mouth and it would not kill you. In the last camp where we were, it was a small camp. So the Germans did not have any refrigeration. So in order to keep the potatoes from freezing, even the southern Bavaria still gets below freezing there. They dug ditches in the ground, put straw in it, put the potatoes in it, covered it with straw and dirt, and every day they used to take out so many potatoes to feed themselves and the prisoners. One of those ditches got full of water and the potatoes rotted. Everybody knows what rotten potatoes smell like, right? Horrible. Now in the camp in the barracks we had a little iron stove that would burn wood to keep us warm. Now you know, unless you take a shower every day or change your clothes every day, the only time they gave us a shower or changed our clothes is when they shipped us from camp to camp. Then they gave us different clothes, gave us a shower. So unless you do that, if you don't do that, you accumulate lice. And lice live on only one thing: human blood. So if you had a scratch or a cut, the lice would congregate and suck the blood out of you. I saw something that I can't get out of my mind. I'll always remember it. I saw a dead man actually move. It was so covered with lice. The lice were moving and they were actually moving the body. Horrible sight. Anyway, one night, I got out and got some of those rotten potatoes. In order to live, you had to get rid of the lice. So you took off your coat or your pants. The lice usually accumulate in the seams of your clothing. So you run the seam of your clothing on the hot little stove, the lice will either perish or jump off. Either way, either you get rid of the lice or the lice got rid of you. At the same time, my friend and I, we were making potato pancakes on this little wood-burning stove. The potatoes were so rotten you didn't have to peel them. The meat was that far away from the potato. All you had to do is break the skin open, and you had the meat of the potato right in your hand. And we were making potato pancakes on this little wood-burning stove. And I can tell you one thing, those tasted very, very good. Anything when you're hungry, anything you can put in your mouth tasted very good. When they were taking us from the woods to this little village, there were some dead horses laying on the side of the road, maybe shot by airplanes. The prisoners jumped on them. By the time I got there was nothing left. I took a rock, broke the horse's head, and ate some of the marrow. And I'm sure some of the people that ate some of the meat probably didn't survive. I would like to open it for questions now. I don't know how much time I have. If you have any questions, stand up. I think there's a microphone.
Yes.
And the teacher will repeat the question to me, because I have hearing aids from the VA, but they're not as good.
All right, so Karen's going to help us. So if you have a question, you can keep your hand up. If you can speak loudly enough so that I can hear you, that way I can help Howard understand your question if he will answer it. If you need a microphone, just please give Mr. Lynn a little bit of time to get to you. Okay?
Any questions? Would you please stand up?
How do you think, or what do you think of how Holocaust has been represented in media, film, stuff like that? Do you think it's important to show it in more realistic or?
How do you think the Holocaust has been represented in media,
Of
movie,
what?
the Holocaust?
Yeah.
How do you think it's been shown on TV and movies? Is it realistic? Not realistic?
Yes, their documentaries are realistic, but the movies are not. So Schindler's List is a very good movie. That's pretty realistic, yes. But most of the movies are not realistic. Any other questions?
How important do you think it is to have the documentaries and to have it represented in TV and movies?
I know there's some people going around saying that the Holocaust never happened. That's a lie. Maybe 100,000 people, 200,000 people got killed. What happened to my family? Where did they go? Did they take them to the moon? Did they take them to Mars? What happened to them? Lithuania had a population of about 3.5 million people. And there were 200,000 Jews living in Lithuania. And I found out after the war that 94% of the Lithuanian Jews were killed. The most Jews killed in any country in Europe. Why am I so lucky? 6 out of 100 survived. For my whole family, my father and I, no one survivors. My mother didn't survive, my two sisters didn't survive. So if anybody tells you the Holocaust didn't happen, you have my permission to call them a liar. It did happen. And it happened again after the Second World War. And it's still happening. But people don't like people because the color of their skin is different, or they believe in God, they call God by a different name. But we're all the same. Any other questions?
Can we hear you? We might be able to hear you.
I have to sit down.
How many different camps you were shipped to throughout the war?
How many camps?
How many?
I think I was in about 7 or 8 camps. Ghettos, work camps, concentration camps. They shipped to, people that they were shipping for work were shipped different than people that they were shipping to be annihilated. Like they were shipping people to Treblinka or Sobibor or Auschwitz. They were packing them in 120 people in a railroad car. They didn't care if the people, when they got there, are half dead because they're going to kill them anyway. When they're shipping you for work, they ship you a different way. They ship you, I don't know if anybody was at the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. or in Illinois. They have a railroad car there, and between the doors, they had barbed wire between the doors, and they had German guards in the middle, and they had prisoners on either side of the barbed wire. And that's the way they shipped us from one camp to another, because they wanted us to survive, because they wanted us to work. They gave us water, they gave us food, but if they shipped it to be annihilated, they didn't care. Any other questions?
As a Holocaust survivor, what are the type of things, like if you were put in front of just us and other Americans, what are the kind of
say, just addressing us about the Holocaust and what kind of message would you?
What's your most important message as a survivor that you would like everybody to know?
You know, some people ask me if I believe in God. They say, how can you believe in God? Look what I did to you. Look what God did to you. About 5-6 years ago, I was listening to Elie Wiesel on NPR radio. I mean, I think everybody knows who Elie Wiesel was, right? And Elie Wiesel said he was angry with God. I couldn't understand it. I'm not angry with God. I still believe in God. I still go to synagogue, not as often as I should, probably. Because God didn't do it. God gives you a choice. The choice is not up to God. The choice is up to you. So if you do something bad, you can't blame God for it. You've got to blame yourself. Any other questions?
One coming right up there.
Yes, I have one. So what year were you born? Which state were you born?
What year were you born in what country?
What?
What year were you born?
I was born in Lithuania. Anybody know where Lithuania is? It's on the Baltic Sea. It's on the east side of the Baltic Sea.
And then what year?
I was born in 1931. But I changed my birthday when I was in Stuttgart. If I would have told them I was only 13, I would have stayed there. I would have gone on that ship in the Baltic Sea and I would have drowned. So by changing my birthday, I saved my life. I wanted to survive. Some people ask me, how did you survive the war? There's one question I cannot answer because I don't know. Maybe being at the right place at the right time. I have no idea, but I wanted to survive. If I would have lived for a couple of minutes afterwards, after it was the end of Hitler, I would have been very happy to die. Any other questions?
With everything that you've been through and everything that you've experienced, how do you maintain a positive outlook on your life and throughout your whole life?
How do you remain positive after all of your experiences?
How am I positive? Well, that's what kept me alive. And I think it's a good thing that other people should think positive too. There are a lot of people that, especially with the leader we have now, think negative. But we're all the same, right? Our wishes, our hopes, our desires are all the same, right? We're all human beings. We're all born the same, and we all die the same, right? It's what you do in between that counts. Any other questions? I have to tell you that I got a doctorate degree from Condensed University.
Did you really?
Doctor of Humane Letters.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll get on your question. So your question is?
I was wondering, during the Cold War, did it terrify you that another war may start and that war would be started?
Good question. He said during the Cold War,
Pardon?
during the Cold War,
Yeah.
Were you ever afraid that we would have another world war?
The Cold War? No. What do you mean? I wasn't in Russia during the Cold War.
No, but do you fear there could be a World War III?
No, no. I didn't think there ever could be a World War III because I don't think the Russians were that crazy. Okay? I'm glad that Russia, the communist regime fell in Russia, and a lot of countries became independent. So it's a wonderful thing. But I think the human race eventually will realize that we're all the same. I don't care what language you speak or how you look or how you act or how you call God. We're all the same. So why not treat the other person the same way you want to be treated? Wouldn't that be wonderful? That's why my wife doesn't want me to go to speak anymore. She says, you had a heart attack, you had a heart operation, you had a back operation, you had other operations. I said, it's enough. I says, no. I want to tell the young people what a horrible thing hatred is. The human race got it when they started walking on 2 feet. Sometimes you hate somebody and you don't know why. You finally realize, I don't have anything against that person. So if I could change one person's mind, especially young people, to be a little bit more forthcoming, more loving, more helpful, I think I've done my job. I'd like to leave this world in a better shape than when I found it. And I think once we get rid of the leader we have here now, we'll be in very good shape. Any other questions?
What would you tell kids who make crude jokes about the Holocaust?
So say that one more time.
What would you tell kids who make jokes about the Holocaust?
What would you say to a young person who would make a joke about the Holocaust?
Well, if you make a joke about the Holocaust, if you mean well, it's all right. But if you have different thoughts, it's not right to make a joke about a Holocaust. It's not a very pleasant thought. Any other questions?
Have you still experienced prejudice as a refugee in America?
When you came to America, did you ever experience any type of discrimination?
I never experienced discrimination in the United States. Wherever I was working, or in the Air Force, I treated the other person the same way I want to be treated. Never had any problems. I was treated very good. I never had any problems. Of course, the American people are more, I would say, more nicer to a stranger than the Europeans are. Because we're a country of strangers, right? Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our great-great-great-parents, we're all immigrants, right? So we can't say, I'm better than you are because I was born here before you came here. We're all the same, right? Any other questions?
I was wondering, when you first came to America, were you willing to start talking about your experiences and reflecting, or did it take some time for you to start sharing those experiences, as well as with your family, when you start telling your children about what you experienced?
Why did I start telling my story? There's a gentleman in the audience here that I started, he started me telling the story. In 1971, when they opened up Russia for immigrants, for visitors, my father had survived the war, and evidently when he was, he must have been in better shape than I was, because where would you go if you survived the war? You went back to your hometown, right? Anybody who survived the war, they would go back. So by the time my friend and I, we were healthy enough to go back, there were people coming back from there. Don't go back there, because the Russians were treating returning prisoners as traitors, because we worked for the Germans. So we didn't go back. So in 1971, when they opened up Russia for visitors, we went to Russia. And at that time, my wife was selling Avon. And his wife was a customer. And when my wife told him that we were going to Russia, he said, Russia's a closed society. Why are you going to Russia? So she told him. So he was after me to come to his school. He was a civics teacher at Brookfield Central. He was after me to come and speak to his classes. So I think in 1995, when I semi-retired, I started going to his classes and started speaking. And my wife says, nobody can shut me up now. Any other questions?
What was your mindset when you were being transported around camp?
What was your mindset when you were being? What was your mindset? Like, what did you feel when you were being transported from camp to camp?
Well, I just hope that they took us for work, you know, instead of taking us to Blinker or Auschwitz or Sobibor, you know. So I was just hoping that. You know, some people ask me if I hate the Germans. They say, look what they did to you. I don't hate the Germans. I don't hate the Lithuanians. I don't hate the Ukrainians, the Latvians, or the Slovaks. I only have something against the people that perpetrated it. I have nothing against the sons and daughters. I go to Aldi's and to Trader Joe's. I buy German products. Some of the products are pretty good. My friend was in Hawaii on a vacation, and he met a German couple. And they were talking, and they said, well, if you ever come to Germany, he says, come and visit us. He's a doctor in a prison in, I forgot the name of the town. Anyway, in 1988, we went to Germany to see the camps. One camp was completely destroyed. Dachau, all the barracks were destroyed. They built up a barrack to show you what it looks like. And we stayed by them. They treated us wonderful. And we told them, if you ever come to the States, come and visit us. So I think in 1995, they came to the States. They visited us. We still correspond with them. They're wonderful people. I don't have nothing against them. Any other questions?
After Lithuania became free from the Soviet Union in 1990, when it became a free society, did you ever have that?
Have you ever went back to Lithuania to visit?
Yes, I did go back to Lithuania. In 1971, I went back to Lithuania to see my father. I found out that my father had returned to Lithuania in 1947, I think, because I had an uncle in Israel. I knew his name, but I didn't know his address. So I gave it to the Jewish agency, and they found him. And I got a letter from him stating that my father, he had a letter from my father in Kaunas, Lithuania. So that's the way I found out that my father had survived the war. I couldn't write to my father directly because he was in Russia, and I was in the American zone in Germany. So he wrote to my father, and I sent the letters to my uncle. My uncle sent them to my father, and vice versa. So in 1960, I sent my father a visa to come to the United States. By that time, my father had remarried and had a son. The Russians said, sure, your father can come to the States, but his wife and his son can go. So naturally, my father didn't come here. So in 1973, when they opened up migration from Russia to Israel, my father went to Israel, and I used to go and visit him every other year or so. He died in 1995 at the ripe old age of about 93. Any other questions?
Have you gotten a chance to visit any of the museums, or are you a chance to have been to museums, and have you been able to contribute anything to them?
Okay. So you said you had went back and saw Dachau, but she's wondering if you went to any of the. Have you went to any museums, a Holocaust museum?
Yeah.
And then she asked if you've contributed to any of the museums.
I do. I send them a small contribution every year. I think they're doing a wonderful job, especially sending exhibitions all over the United States. But you don't have to go to Washington, D.C. There's a beautiful museum in Skokie, Illinois. It's a little smaller, but it has all the, it even has a German railroad car. So it's a very good museum. I don't know if they charge anything for going there, but I was there, and I think it's a wonderful place to visit. Any other questions?
If your friend hadn't decided to immigrate, do you still think you would have?
Can you say it one more time, please?
If your friend hadn't decided to immigrate, do you think you still would have?
If your friend hadn't come to the United States, would you have come?
That's one question I can't answer. I don't know. Maybe yes and maybe not. I probably wouldn't have gone back to Russia. I probably wouldn't have gone there. Maybe I would have gone to Israel to my uncle. I don't know. It's one question I can't answer because I'm glad I came here. I'm glad I found a wonderful woman. And I'm glad I have a wonderful family. And I'm glad I'm going to contribute something to the United States, which is a wonderful country, which is a country that accepts all the immigrants, all the poor people, all the people that want to be free. And I can tell you one thing, I'm very happy to be here. Any other questions?
Do the events of the Holocaust still impact you to this day?
Does the Holocaust impact you today?
Does it what?
Does it impact you today?
Did it help me today?
Does it impact? Do you think about it today?
What I think about it today is the most horrible thing that happened to people. Because why did he kill the Jews? He killed the Jews, he killed the gypsies, he killed the people with disabilities. He killed a lot of Germans. There's no such a thing as the master race. Maybe some aliens will come from some other planet. Maybe they'll be the master race. But as far as people born here, there is no master race here. There never was and there never will be.
So I think we have time for a couple more questions. We can squeeze a couple more in if you guys have them.
When you were in the camps, what was able to keep you going to get to the next day to say that I will get through this?
What kept you going each day? Was there anything you thought of that just kept you going?
There's one thing I don't know. I know one thing. I wanted to survive. I wanted to survive the war. I wanted to see the end of Hitler. In the fall of 1941, I put on my mother's dress and went to work at the airport because the European women are shorter than American women are because they give you better rations when you worked at the airport. We were unloading railroad cars, I think, with sand or gravel. They were taking empty ones away and bringing full ones. And I saw a young man, I don't know, maybe in his 20s or 30s, jump off a platform and put his head on a rail, roll the car, come down and cut his head off. He didn't want to live anymore. He couldn't take it. I was just the opposite. I wanted to survive. And maybe that's what kept me alive. I don't know. I'll probably never know. Any other questions?
Do you personally think that anything like the Holocaust will ever happen again in the foreseeable future?
Do you think anything like the Holocaust has happened or will happen again?
If the Holocaust?
Do you think anything like the Holocaust has happened or will happen again?
No, I don't think it'll happen again because I think world wars are get to be a thing of the past because with the weapons we have nowadays, if we want to destroy the planet, yes, then maybe it'll happen again. Maybe a crazy man will do it once. But if it happens again, the planet will be destroyed, and I don't know why it should happen again. I don't think so. I think 30, 40 years, we'll be going to different planets. And our knowledge is increasing by so many. It's like a snowball running downhill. I read an article in the New York Times it's amazing. That's what's happening in this world. A lot of people don't know about it, but we're going to be a very happy people. I think the whole world is going to be happy. I think we're going to embrace each other, and we're going to call each other brother. And I want to tell you that the human race is going to be, maybe the human race will populate the whole cosmos, the whole different galaxies, and the human race will be, I can't imagine what, all I want to tell you is, if you I want you to treat the other person the same way you want to be treated. Because we're all born the same and we'll die the same. And life is a gift. You should treasure it as a gift. And I thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.